Howdy, this is Lemmy with RevZilla TV, here to talk to you today about Memphis Shades windshields for Harley. You should be looking into a Memphis Shades windshield if you're looking for a little bit of wind protection, a little bit of weather protection, and you're looking to maintain classic good looks on your motorcycle. Memphis Shades is making these for just about every single air-cooled Harley out there. No matter the age of your ride, it's almost a definite that Memphis Shades is going to have at least a few items for your particular motorcycle. Installation on these is not too bad. Depending on what product you wind up with, you're probably looking at 1 to 2 beards on our BSD, our beard scale of difficulty. Again, depending on the product, most of you should have just a little bit of time in the garage. You may need just a couple hand tools, although Memphis Shades is good about providing quite a few with their kits. Let's get right into things. Now, for those of you who aren't super familiar with wind management in general, we actually have a Wind Management 101. I'd encourage you to take a peek if you don't know too much about windshields, fairings, and sort of why people put them on their motorcycles. For those of you who are up to speed on that, you already know that a windshield really is going to protect you from the elements like rain and possibly light snow. They're also going to protect you from wind. It's going to cut down buffeting. It's going to really make your ride a little bit smoother and quieter. It's a lot calmer behind the fairing in that calm pocket of air. And then the final benefit they really confer upon your bike is to give it more of a classic look. It's really sort of an antique look to your motorcycle. Realistically, Harley never came out with the Batwing fairing until 1969. So pre-69, every bike that Harley cranked out that was set up for touring, FLs, big FLHs, full dress machines, they really only ever had glass on them because that was all that there was. You could get a windshield for your bike, and when you saw a windshield on a rider's bike back then, you knew that thing was set up for big mileage. Now you can keep that same classic look with all of the Memphis Shades windshields products. They really differentiate themselves from their fairings by their lack of opacity. That is, they're transparent. So anytime you can see through something, you're looking really at more of a windshield than a fairing. That's typically the dividing line there between fairings and windshields. So with respect to windshields, we have a couple different products you can see here. So on the Sportster behind me, you can see here that we have the classic Deuce setup. Now this is a handlebar mounted windshield. This differs from a lot of the other Memphis Shades products, but this is something those of you on narrower bikes are going to want to consider if you're looking for a windshield. So those of you on Sportsters, Dynas, or FX Series Softails, the classic Deuce is going to be a great option for you. It's going to give you good coverage without overwhelming the front end of your bike. Now moving down here, you can see here we have the Memphis Shades spoiler windshield. This is a drop-in shield for those of you who do have touring bikes, something with a fairing already on it. The spoiler is a little bit different than your factory shield. It's going to bolt into the fairing just like a regular shield. However, you can see here this little flip and these hips they have on here. What this is going to help do is keep air coming off you. Sometimes factory HD shields aren't really designed that well, or even the ones that are designed well don't maybe work with a particular rider. Depending on your helmet or perhaps your height, or really there's just some sort of interface between you and the bike. Perhaps it's your distance from the shield. It's just not working out. So the spoiler can actually kind of step in and help you tailor fit that fairing and shield setup that you might have, really fit you and fit you well. Keep in mind too, these are also available for Memphis Shades series Batwings, so they're not limiting it to just the HD factory stuff. You can also get one of these if you do elect to go with the Memphis Shades fairing. Moving down the line here, you can see Memphis Shades Sport Shield. So the Sport Shield and the Classic Deuce really do share a lot of things in common. They're very narrow shields, again, good for those of you on skinnier bikes, but you can see here the mounting system's a little different. Rather than mounting to the handlebars as the Classic Deuce does, this is going to mount to your forks. So again, this is going to need some plate-specific mounting kits. You need a couple other things to make this jive with your motorcycle, but again, if you jump in our Bike Finder, it's going to help you kind of go through the process, and we try and lay out for you what you need to mount these things on your motorcycles. Moving to the extreme right side of things, we actually have two Memphis Shades products here. You can see we have a Memphis Fats windshield. I think this is probably Memphis Shades' claim to fame. This is the thing that everybody knows Memphis Shades for. It is definitely their signature product. And you can see on top here we have their Hot Wing Air Booster. So the Memphis Fats and the Memphis Slim really are I think the archetypal windshield. These are the items that you remember seeing from, the 50s and 60s. These are the things that you saw on bikes. Really right down even to the color gradient that they put on these things. They look very authentic. They look super classic. This is styling that's not going anywhere. Now the Fats and the Slim really also give great coverage. I mean, you can see how tall this thing is next to me and how wide it is. This puppy rings in at 22 inches wide. That's a Fats. The Slims ring in at 18 inches. The reason they offer two different widths on those, the Fats and the Slim, is again for those of you on smaller bikes. So anybody with a little bit narrower motorcycle, you're going to want to look into a Slim as opposed to a Fats, which really is going to look better on your FL Softails, and possibly those of you with a Road King who are looking to replace glass. Maybe you want something tinted, or perhaps you've wrecked and you need to replace your stuff. I will give just a little bit of editorial opinion. Even though they do make kits for these things to fit really tiny bikes, think really small Sportsters, 883 irons, stuff like that, I think that the Slim even tends to overwhelm the front end of the bike a little bit. So stylistically, that can look just a little bit strange. Now on top of here, we talked about this Hot Wing booster. The Hot Wing is pretty cool. What this thing does is actually clips onto your factory windshield if you have a Road King or an aftermarket Fats or Slim, and this thing actually helps move air a little bit differently than even that shield is doing. So if you've selected a shield that might be a hair short for you, you can go ahead and drop this thing on there. It's going to help you out. If you have a factory shield that's just not the right size, rather than replace the whole thing, you can try out a Hot Wing, and it might actually help you redirect the air over you in a way that's a little bit more comfortable. It's also nice too because with this thing, since it does tend to kind of flip the air up a little bit, you can get away with running a little bit shorter shield. I know if you're anything like me, most people really do want a shorter shield. The shorter the better. Shorter's cool. That's super in right now. Just look at all the street glides out there running those teeny little things out there. Short is in, and the Hot Wing will definitely help you get there. So now that we've kind of gone through some of these things, let's talk about some commonalities to all of them. In terms of construction, these things are all lucite. Now most people don't really make a big deal over what their shields are made of. I think a lot of people don't even think about it. But with respect to other materials, like say plexiglass, lucite really does prove itself superior. It's an optically superior type of a shield. So what that means for you is you're going to have an easier time seeing through it. Now those of you who run fairings or bikini fairings, something little, you're probably looking over your glass. You don't really even think about it. But if you do run a nice big windshield like this puppy here, you really do need something that's going to look good. It's got to be clear and it's got to be optically correct so you don't get disoriented when you're behind the shield in your bike. I know on my dresser I have an enormous shield on that thing, and I'm always keeping that thing sparkling clean, and I really need it to give me good depth of field so I don't feel overwhelmed when I'm getting on top of a car, and I have good depth perception. So that's something you definitely want to think about. Again, Memphis Shades making everything out of lucite really does help you see through that shield in a way that's going to be safe for you and safe for those around you. Now construction-wise and mounting-wise, like I said, these are all very similar. Mounting does get a little bit hairy from item to item. So depending on what you have, again, like we said earlier, the Deuce is going to be a handlebar mount. Looking here at the Sport Shield, which is a very similar product, it's going to be the exact same, except it's going to mount to the forks. On your Memphis Fats or your Memphis Slims, these are actually going to mount with a plates mount kit. We'll get into those in just a little bit. And then, of course, on the factory spoiler windshield, this thing is going to mount very much like your factory stuff does. So let's get into installation right now. We'll pull in some different stuff here, and I'll kind of show you how some of these products attach to your motorcycle. Alrighty, so I promised you installation, and here we are. This is the part that most of you are probably most concerned about. So let's break these things down, easiest to most difficult, even though none of them are really that difficult. And I'll let you know exactly what you need to do to put each one of these on. So really, I think starting off the ground level, if you're rocking either a Memphis Fats or a Memphis Slim on your bike already, or if you have a factory piece of glass in place, like those of you riding around on Road Kings, you're going to want to check out the Hot Wing. The Hot Wing really is a very simple installation. You can see here, really, you're just going to install the two clips on this thing with the provided Allen wrench. It's very easy to install these. You're going to select the right pads that go in here, really relative to the thickness of your windshield, and then you're pretty much set to rock and roll. You're going to clip those on, like so, tighten it down, and you're ready to rock and roll. There's a little bit of adjustability in here, not a ton of it, but you can actually switch positions just a little bit to sort of get you a little more or a little less height, depending on what's going to feel best to you in that little pocket, again, back in the cockpit of the bike. Now moving up the food chain, you're going to have something probably a little bit more difficult, like the classic Deuce. Now I say a little bit more difficult, this really is a very simple installation. On this particular motorcycle, putting something onto handlebars really is pretty easy. Most Harleys have a pretty ample handlebar area. As long as you're rocking a 1-inch bar, this thing is going to bolt up, and it's going to be pretty easy. Again, one Allen key is really all you need for the installation and removal on this thing. Now it's a little bit tricky in terms of going on and off with it. If you're somebody who likes to switch out, say, a bikini fairing for a shield, or kind of bounce between things, maybe even throw on a larger batwing style fairing, this might not be the windshield for you, just in that it takes a little bit to get the thing dialed in, bolted up, and put on in the position that's going to best help you, and you're going to need to adjust and fine tune just a little bit after you get that thing on there. But again, if you're the person who likes to bounce around between things on the bike, given the fact the installation on this takes just a little while, I think most of you should probably budget about a half an hour to get that thing on there. You might want to consider this sort of as a set it and forget it sort of a product. Now, over here you can see here we have the spoiler. Now with the spoiler, installation is probably a little bit more difficult still, but still not very hard. You can see here you've got the 3 bolts at the base here. This is going to drop easily into most stock Batwing fairings for those of you who did order one for your stock vehicle. And if you do have a Memphis Shades shield, again, their version also drops in easy to bolt in, not terribly difficult, but again, you're going to look at, again, 3 fasteners at the bottom. You kind of have to straighten this thing out, make sure that it's sitting correctly. You have to be careful with your inner and outer fairing. There's a lot of things in there that are, liable to break. But again, if you're fairly careful and you take a little bit of time, throwing one of these on your motorcycle is a great way to give yourself a better windshield without too much work. Now, if you are considering a Memphis Slim, a Memphis Fats, or perhaps one of their sport shields, those are probably the most difficult in terms of installation. Most of you are not only going to order your shield, but you're also going to need a mount kit. Now, these are available in a couple different configurations. What you see here is a full mount kit. So these clamps here will actually clamp down to your forks, and then from there, you're going to put these plates actually onto your windshield. Now, for those of you who may already have a Memphis Shades product, you can get just plates only kits, and what those include is this entire kit less the 4 clamps. And what that allows you to do is use your existing 4 clamps. You don't have to move those on your bike at all. All you need to do is put these onto your new windshield, and you can bounce between, again, say a Batwing and a windshield, or perhaps a bikini fairing and a windshield. So once you have one of those kits installed in your bike, it's very easy to bounce between those products. The initial install can get a little bit hairy. I won't fib you on that. What I like to do with them when I'm putting them on is get everything sort of loosely assembled, sort of mocked up, and then once I really have the fit adjusted where I like it, tighten everything down. Again, 1 Allen wrench really will suffice for most of you guys who don't have to clear stuff out of the way. There will be a couple of you who have to relocate some turn signals and maybe move some things around on your handlebars in order to accommodate it, but realistically, the actual installation of the plates kits is not too bad. Now, once they are installed, I love how easy it is to switch between a Memphis Shades product. So if you can imagine this puppy here as your motorcycle, here's your headlight. This is your plates kit we were talking about earlier. Here would be your 4 clamp pieces. So this plates kit would have the shield actually already attached to it. And taking this thing off is super easy. They have these cool trigger locks that are spring loaded. They lift up. And if you imagine this on the other side as well, you just roll forward, pull off, and now your windshield is free of your motorcycle. It's really, really fast to bounce between products, or just take off your windshield. If you maybe want to go out for a short ride and you actually want a little bit of air moving over you, perhaps it's warm out, popping your windshield's off really easy. So let's say the weather turns cold, you want to put it back on, just as simple. Really, all you're going to do is, again, line up that bottom side on both sides, lock it in, roll backwards, press down, and you're locked in, ready to go. It really is a simple system. It's very ingenious. Nobody else in the industry really has anything like the Memphis Shades trigger lock system. I really like it. Like I said, it's great just to be able to bounce between products, especially if you want to, again, run with a windshield or without a windshield. I know in the factory convertible models, it's not terrible, but those of you who have a fixed shield, like those of you with the old Electroglide Sports, or perhaps anybody on a Road King, boy, getting that shield on and off really is a pain. Memphis Shades totally does away with that. So I really like Memphis Shades products. They're well thought out, well engineered. The fitment information on them is good. It's something that's going to help out anybody who really needs a little bit of shelter from the wind. It's going to let you ride longer, ride stronger. My opinion is not the only one that matters, though. Click below, check out what some people who are already rocking Memphis Shades products on their bikes have to say about them. If you've got a question about installation or perhaps something I didn't cover, get in touch with one of our gear geeks. 877-792-9455 will get you somebody by phone, or you can always get a geek via email too, cs@revzilla.com. I'm Lemmy, I'm out of here.